Welcome to the Jump Shots from the Goal Line podcast. Tonight, John Henningsen will be hosting, and then filling in for John Dugan, who's on the IR. We're all day to day. Will be your man, Ben Crownover. Welcome, folks. Just a reminder, as always, to subscribe, like, comment. Jump Shots from the Goal Line on Facebook, on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. Like, subscribe, comment again, rate. Just help us out as much as you can. I'm trying to do my best job as I fill in for Dugan, who's always our gracious host, who just hits all these notes for us. But tonight, Ben, welcome. Thanks for sitting in the guest seat, riding shotgun with me. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I feel like you're a little too hard on yourself as the fill-in radio host. Sometimes those are better than the guys that get the primetime slots.
I appreciate that. We're definitely just we're shooting from the hip tonight, folks. So we like having Dugan around. Dugan, we miss you. We know you'll be back soon, but life goes on, and me and Ben are here, and we're going to deliver. And just to give you a quick rundown on kind of what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to touch on college football from last weekend. We're certainly going to talk about some picks that, Ben's our guy. He's going to throw some numbers at you, like them, love them, whatever. We'll talk about wins and losses from last week, and then, talk about a little bit of NFL as well. But I guess, Ben, let's get into that a little bit tonight, because we did have Bills and Rams tonight, and like it, love it, or think it's unwatchable because it's Thursday night football, which would be very on brand. I don't know. Just any thoughts about tonight and what you watched?
It's NFL football, baby. It doesn't matter if it's ugly or not. It's the first game of the year. You can bet all of the things that you want, all the dumb things, first half, individual rushing overs, all that stuff. It's a magical time of year. It's funny because people are like, hey, do you want to golf this weekend? I'm like, no, for the next 5 months, I will not be golfing because I have college football on Saturday and then pro football on Sunday. Oh, and pro football on Monday. Oh, and pro football on Thursday, and the occasional Big Ten primetime slot on Friday as well. Like, this is the best time of year. If you don't like it, you can get at.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, man. I'm glad to have it back. And honestly, the fact that Thursday night, look, I mean, I know what had happened once. What was it? Was it the Chiefs-Rams game that went crazy? Was that on a Thursday night? Maybe it was a Sunday night.
I don't know if we'll ever top that. Whatever primetime slot that was, Thursday, Sunday, or Monday, that was the best primetime game I think I've ever seen in my life. And I don't care if tonight was slower. It was still electric. I went 2 for 2. And the Rams look pretty dog shit, but it's early. It's early, and the Bills are the Super Bowl favorite.
It's week one. Bills are a good squad. I don't think if you're a Rams fan, I don't think you should read too much into this. I think if you're generally going to bet the Rams all year, I wouldn't read too much into this. If you get a little love, and maybe the games are a little closer early on, that might favor you as a Rams better, actually. But just in general, I mean, just talking about the grand scope of football, I wouldn't panic too much on the Rams. Definitely got to feel better about the Bills if you were bullish on the Bills. You got to feel good about that. But honestly, this was kind of a Thursday night game. I mean, honestly, this is kind of what checks out, right? One team shows up, one team has a harder time with it. And this is pretty much what you're going to see on every Thursday night all year. It feels good the first couple times. Mid-season is where I get Thursday night football fatigue. But for tonight, it felt good.
Dude, it's funny because I don't think I realized how much they were going to miss just some of those secondary receivers. And I'm not saying Allen Robinson played dog shit, because I do think he is probably a better second receiver than Robert Woods was. But it was kind of interesting because it felt like Stafford had one option and one option only the entire game. He's chucking to Cooper Kupp, or if Cooper Kupp is covered, it's Tyler Higbee or whichever running back that underperformed woefully was in on that specific play. They looked pretty offensively inept, and I think the Bills defense very good, but I was kind of thinking I was going to catch that Bills from week 1 of last year where the Steelers somehow beat them with a 75-year-old Ben Roethlisberger. They were ready to go, and oh man, it was Josh Allen is so fun to watch. But he's going to be injured if he doesn't start protecting himself the $300 million QB that he is. It was crazy. You see some of like the stuff they were pulling on him. They were like pulling his legs different directions, and then you got dudes like coming in late, hitting him in the head. Wild game. Not a great game, but a wild game to watch.
Yeah, Allen's a wild man on the field. I mean, he plays quarterback at a different clip, right? He's got all the arm to beat you, but he likes to get his nose in there. And I'm with you. I mean, you think at some point that is going to hurt him, but honestly, so far it really hasn't. Like, he has just been a red zone threat, continues to score. And as you mentioned, it seemed like it was Cooper Cup, Cooper Cup, Cooper Cup. And I would be more negative about that, except I watched the Super Bowl where literally every time they needed something, they just went to Cooper Cup and they won that way. So it's a really weird thing where I'm like, yeah, that's the Rams, and yeah, that's the Bills, and everything seems fine, and the Bills lit them up. But I feel like we kind of learned nothing as much as we learned something, if that makes sense.
That rushing game was bad for the Rams. Like, they were talking about Cam Akers being back and being back in a big way. And like, I didn't get a chance to watch the entire first half because my son wanted to watch PJ Mask, and like, say what you will about children's television, it's the worst. But like, I'm like refreshing like for the first little bit while I'm waiting until I can convince him to let me do it. And it's like Cam Akers rushes 0 yards. Cam Akers rushes 0 yards. And then I like, as soon as I'm able to convince my son to turn off PJ Masks, it's like that they could not run the ball. If you can't run the ball, you just drop 8 dudes and you double team, triple team Cooper Cup. It seems like that's a relatively like simple recipe to beat the Rams. But like, Stafford had a good completion percentage in the first half. Second half, not so much, but they're also like, they're playing from behind. The score's a little different. Like, I don't know, man. It just like, it also seemed like the defensive linemen for the Bills were just like, every single pass, like short that should have been a completion, some monster dude just sticks his hand up, bats it up in the air, and it's either about to be picked or it gets picked. That was just like kind of an ugly game for the Rams, but fuck it, NFL football, baby.
Yeah, and again, like, I mean, but if you had to play it out over the season, like, you ultimately trust the Rams to kind of figure it out, right? Like, they're going to get it righted. They're going to be a playoff team, and then we'll see, right? Like, we're going to judge them in week 13, 14, and 15, and really not week 1, right? Like, they're coming off the Super Bowl win, and this can happen.
You got to figure, too, that, like, this is one of those things that's probably, like, the best thing you could have as a gambler, and that Vegas and everybody else is going to hammer whatever team the Rams are playing the rest of, like, the first, like, 6 to 10 weeks, because they're like, no, dude, they got crushed by the Bills. There's no way. And it's like, no, it seemed – I don't think they were, like, super outclassed. They just didn't have a great game plan for it. I think Sean McVay turtles, man. I think he is a bad coach in some games. And, like, Shanahan owns him. And it really felt like McDermott owned him tonight, too.
Well, they've definitely failed to get the running game going. I mean, that is something that seemed like it was like early and often and really easy for the Rams, like an early Sean McVay. And ever since Stafford came, and showed up, it's been all passing game, which has been fine. And obviously it worked. They won a Super Bowl. They're 1-for-1. So again, this is why it's like really hard to criticize them. But you're right. It doesn't seem like they have any run game. It's only gotten worse over time. So it's something to keep an eye on. I mean, I think you make a fair point that, like, hey, maybe there is a problem here. But again, it's like week 1. I try not to overreact on these things because you just kind of know what it is with the teams that win. They generally show up, and Aaron Rodgers is known to lose a lot of week 1, week 2 games, and then over the course of the year, you're better off betting the money line on the Packers 13 out of 17 times in a year. So I kind of look at it the same way, but interesting game tonight. And like you said, dude, I'm just glad it's back. Like, it's great to have the NFL back. It's so much fun to just throw some, splash some cash on and watch some football.
The best thing about it, though, was Matt Stafford finished the game with 2 rushing yards. His rushing over was 1.5. 1.5, baby. I was sweating bullets.
And you can peek this. You can peep this now if you want to, or if you can save it and if you want to keep it in your back pocket. But Ben's hitting this pretty early in the week with like his over-unders on limited quarterbacks in the rush game, if you will. I don't know how you frame it, but we can touch on that now if you want to jump into it.
Oh, I mean, here's what I'll say. I'm not as big on NFL until I see how my Saturday slate does. But I am so excited for the immobile rushing quarterback overs because they hit at a pretty high clip throughout the year, especially early on, because again, I said it last week, Vegas doesn't really know what they're doing. So like Stafford at 1.5, I know that might seem ridiculous, and believe me, I was sweating bullets. It was one play, which is to me the spirit of the bet. It's like an anytime touchdown scorer, but God damn it, if he didn't get 2 yards on that rushing play, I lose that bet. One play, I win that bet, and normally end of the year, Stafford's going to be at 2.5. So you get a yard for the early season action where they don't really know what to expect. I suspect it'll probably stay at 1.5 for a while. It didn't look particularly mobile tonight, but it was that was
The second
that was an easy
the second he made that explosive play for 2 yards, though, I texted you immediately. I was like, I'm pretty sure my guy's a winner.
I had like 12 people, like literally. It's funny because I had it simultaneously. I had like 12 to 16 people immediately be like, let's go. That's the over, right? Like, did it hit? And I'm like, yes, it did. But I'm like, but then Stafford's risky because you get in this weird in between where it's like, if they're up and he takes a knee, that win goes to a loss at the end of the game. And that is why it is such a good bet. Because it's like you kind of needed him to be behind and him to have done that one time. Because if they were up and he kneeled down, I lost that bet.
It's the most ridiculous bet, but it's also, I get it. It's actually a very exciting bet. And if you haven't been on the ride of wanting your quarterback to just take one, like for Stafford, it's like you mentioned, like forward. Obviously you don't need the knee, but you need one stride and for him to fall forward.
It's like he's getting chased by a defensive tackle. They catch him at the line of scrimmage, but he still falls forward and he gets 2 yards. It's so stupid, but it's one of the funniest things to bet because you're also at the bar and it's like nobody knows what you're betting for because you're like screaming, you're like throw it because the guy's about to run out of bounds like 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You just need him to throw it away, and it's like then you get in or it's like he's tucking and you're like just go like you want pressure but not too much pressure because you need him to escape the pocket. It's the dumbest thing in the world, but it is so funny. And it's as electric to me as like an anytime touchdown bet. But you get this like really, really like stupid, like just want to see one stupid like breakdown and it hits and then you're just smiling the rest of the night. That's what happened to me tonight.
Yeah, congratulations to you, sir. And I was going to say, like, since we're here, though, I mean, I thought we might bring it up later, but I mean, we're here. We're obviously living in this bet right now, so let's just ride it while we're here.
I have four ones.
Yeah, like what do you got? What do you got this weekend? Where can we get on this electric train to Funtown?
I was very disappointed because I think I talked about it with you guys on the side, but I was so optimistic whenever like the Steelers signed Mitch Trubisky. I'm like, I think my dog's thrown up right now, by the way. So like, stay tuned for me to get to do that live on the pod. But she's calmed down now. All right, I think I'm good. But Mitch Trubisky's rushing over was 18.5. And I'm so upset because I felt like that was going to be a good one where they give me like 9.5, but they didn't. Anyway, all right. Here are your four dark horses to ride besides Stafford this year. Mac Jones, he's got 8.5 against the Dolphins this week. I really like that one. I don't know a ton about the Dolphins defense, but generally this hits when it's like the team that you're talking about has like kind of shaky offensive line play, and then they're going against a team with good defensive ends. I love Mac Jones at 8.5 because like, to me, he's young enough that he's not. I mean, he might have had the worst combine photo or like that picture that circulated on draft day of him like
looking like real good body. I don't know. It kind of looks like my body. I think it's a good body.
Yeah, but for an NFL athlete, you're like that. Dude
no, yeah. I consider myself an NFL athlete. Thanks, Mac Jones. I think it's a good body.
Yeah, like that's the like you look at him, you're like, oh, I could be in the NFL, and you can't, but. Mac Jones is still young enough that 8.5, he is a perfect candidate for like a 2.5 rushing over 5 years from now. But
yeah, 100%. I do like this though because I think if you think about game flow for this game, I mean you can't really picture either team running away from it. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, clearly the
Everybody's going to
Patriots
be
like
covered.
lack weapons, but like also like, I don't think the Dolphins are going to explode and run away from this game. Like, and even if they do, either way, like Matt Jones has to make up for this offense somehow. So I like this one because like they're gonna have third downs. Like there's no way you're thinking, oh, this team's just gonna steamroll and he'll just be able to stay in the pocket all day. No, this guy's gonna have to do something. Like they're gonna have to make plays. Like offensively, they're gonna have to be involved in this game, and it might be a freaking boot keeper. I mean, naked. Yeah, I don't. Anything is possible with this team. Belichick's like, in his side hustle is like, I don't know, maybe we'll run the option. I mean, like who knows what this guy's going to do? I like 8.5 for Matt Jones, so I like this one a lot. I'll let you continue, but I mean, I just wanted to interject because this one makes sense to me.
Perfect. Like it's funny. I think they all will make sense to you as I go through them too. This is why this is the best bet in college, not college. Sorry, I'm still in college football zone. This is
we'll
like
get there, buddy. We'll get there.
It's the funniest thing in the world, dude. I love Mac Jones 8.5 because they have no weapons. That's the other component of it. You need a team where like there's not going to be an open receiver if there's not like a dramatic like, oh my gosh, like this team has amazing defensive ends. I don't know anything about the Dolphins. They could. Last defensive end I remember from Miami was Cameron Wake. Shout out Penn State. Anyway,
yeah,
like
sounds about right.
I don't remember anybody else, and it's like his receivers suck. So
yeah, there's definitely going to be a struggle there. So I mean, I think this one. I mean, honestly, this one makes a ton of sense to me. What's your next pick here? Who else we got as we keep it moving through the league?
Joe Burrow 5.5. Now this might not jump
on
off
them
the page.
On them knees.
On those knees. Well, on those knees last year, end of the season, his rushing over was 8.5. So you're getting 3 yards right now because Vegas doesn't know what they're doing. I think a big part of this, when I was trying to talk about this at the bar with somebody, and I'm like, I think they're looking at it, they're like, his offensive line is going to be better. He's not going to be pressured as much. Well, against the Steelers, I think he would be. They do have TJ Watt. Eventually, the Steelers will get every single Watt brother on the same team. Right now, they have 2 of the 3. But, like, TJ Watt is enough pressure for me to think that Joe Burrow will scramble at some point and inevitably pick up 6 rushing yards. I love this one.
So are you counting on TJ Watt's lack of discipline as a Steelers fan?
Well, he's better than Bud Dupree. I used to always say this. Bud Dupree was the best defensive end in the league at rushing past the quarterback. That guy would get 30 yards of penetration, and it's like, oh, wait, you ran past the quarterback 20 yards ago. TJ Watt's good at his job.
Outside contain matters, but I understand what you're saying, that you could see some pressure. He's got to escape. He's still young and very confident. So like the idea of him taking off, and he always is going to see the field well. So I think really this bet is right. Like just whether you think the Steelers have enough good coverage over the course of a day that Joe has to tuck and run a bit.
They should. Their defense is the only good thing about them. Like, I'm not trying to bash the Steelers right now because whatever. But if there's a strength of that team, it's the defense. And to me, like, if I'm getting 3 yards better than I was getting the last game he played, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And then what do we have next there? So Steelers, Bengals, again, I think a game that, who knows what's coming out of it. And Joe runs, makes sense. Who's up?
Kirk Cousins 3.5. So this is based entirely off of Kirk Cousins made me the most money last year on these. He was typically getting 4.5 to 5.5 rushing yards. He is at 3.5 for week 1 in division rival game. Like, I really like the idea that, like, at some point they're just gonna. He's not afraid to do it. He's just not fast. He is truly the fall forward, gets tackled 1 yard past the line of scrimmage, and that's probably the only time he does it. But 3.5, I'm like, I got to take it. By the way, I parlayed all of these because you have to.
You trust it so much. You believe in your system.
I looked at so much. I was texting you last night. There's some like rock solid like stats to back me up on this. I love Cousins, and then the last one is Derek Carr over 4.5. He might be the most mobile, immobile quarterback in this bunch. and he does it all the time. Raiders have a bad offensive line, and I know he has Devontae Adams now instead of just throwing to Darren Waller, but it's still Derek Carr, and he probably can't see that he's wide open 20 yards down the field. I like Derek Carr to get me 5 rushing yards this week against the
Yeah, they're going
Chargers,
against
who have a good defensive line. It's a
you would
perfect
think,
matchup.
but it still has to be proved out. But you would think at some point he's going to have to step forward, and then maybe either maybe we'll see some inexperience in those Chargers D tackles. Maybe there's a little bit of letdown there, and he escapes and runs free. But I do like. I mean, he's still a pretty athletic guy. 4.5 doesn't feel like a big ask. He's also like the savvy guy. Who, like, I will give him credit for this as much as I tend to agree with you. Like he might make a mistake downfield. He's like stick the ball out across the pylon guy. Like he's not an idiot. Like he'll give you the extra yard by just sticking the arm out. And if you're betting on 4.5, that reach can mean the world of difference on your parlay.
I think the only challenge on all of these is that Joe Burrow is the most likely to need to kneel down in this game of all these games. And that, again, is a -2 to -3, depending on how dramatic that step back is. So, like, you got to watch out for the kneel down on these bad boys. But I love these, man. These are the funniest things to bet. I will have more NFL picks, but I really do wait to see how my Saturday slate goes before I start firing on spreads and overs and all that fun stuff.
I kind of do the same a little bit early in the. Like I said, I'm kind of a wait and see approach on most of what I do. I even like to, I spent some time, and maybe we can jump into this, like, as we kind of move over to college football, and maybe we'll meander back to the NFL, just talk about general thoughts at the end here. But as you talk about college football, and maybe we'll talk about some of your winners and losers, like. A lot of my wins, frankly, like, and this isn't to say that I was great, like basically on the slate last weekend, just full disclosure, right? Like I was up a couple of units, nothing crazy at all, mostly because I did well with Florida State and Clemson the last couple of days because I like to see them. I like it to be a game that I'm locked in on. I can watch that first defensive stop and be like, all right, this is an under in this first half. Like now I know. And like I might, ride something like that and decide on that. So I like to get a feel myself. So, we kind of talked about it last week. Like, man, I'll wait till the last minute till the lines move and all the risk that I can take on with that. But sometimes I even like to just put my eyes on it and be like, okay, Clemson's D-line's real. Georgia Tech will never score, and so on and so forth. So, we had wins, losses, up and down. I don't know, Ben, if you just kind of, how you have it listed out in your brain, but do you want to touch on, I don't know, you like a positive guy, negative guy? Do you want to start with some things that we probably got wrong? Do you want to go to things that we got right?
I think it's appropriate I apologize first before I brag about the things I got right.
All ears.
Sorry for your loss is what I would call this. If you followed me. Though if you followed me completely, you did finish up 4 units, so whatever. Take that as you will. The Georgia Tech game, here's what I'm going to say. I was right about Clemson. They are the same team as last year. I was wrong about Georgia Tech. They hung in there.
Yeah. And let's talk about this. I want to talk about this one a little bit because one thing, I'll take my small victory lap on this, and this is nothing. I'm not even talking about it from a gambling perspective, but just like simply one thing I said about Clemson and why I think they're interesting to watch over the course of the season. And I know it was garbage time, but they did bring in that second quarterback. He had a drive, and he took him for a touchdown, and he looked sharp doing it. So if they have 2 options at quarterback and they have something else that they can go to, I think that gives them an element they didn't have last year. So just big picture, talking Clemson and just talking football, it was really nice to see kind of that part of it. If you're a Clemson guy, like if you don't want to root for Clemson, which I'm not necessarily rooting for Clemson, but I also believe that, hey, this is going to be a good defense. And if one of these 2 quarterbacks or a mix of these is just good enough, like, hey, they're going to be right back in the playoff conversation as they normally are. But I'll let you continue because I don't think you've got this. Yeah, this is an apology that should be a pretty soft apology because you're right. DJ didn't look that great. There was an offensive struggle, and it just kind of depends on how you decided to play this game.
Yeah, dude, honestly, like, and it's funny, you watch these games too, and I felt like I was 100% right on how to pronounce DJ's name. And then, like, you hear on the broadcast, they're like, Uagalongale. And I'm like, what the fuck? I thought it was Uagalele. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He did not look good.
I just stick with DJ, man. That's why we're riding out with DJ. We're just playing it safe over here.
That's the cop-out. I want to try to – I look at a Hawaiian name and I want to pronounce it because it makes me feel cultured. But, yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, he does not look good. Cade Klubnik looked really, really good. Like, he is the next Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, problematic, I know, but whatever. Um, Talented QB that they have at Clemson. And he'll keep them relevant when they play a soft schedule for the next 3 years. And, their defense looked great. I mean, here's what I'll say. Like, Georgia Tech would have lost by 70 if they had enforced that targeting call on their middle linebacker, who seemed like the only dude who was semi-capable of anything. I think targeting is the dumbest role in college football. And it's like the intent of it was not to it was I feel like they made that role for like the Vontez Burficts of the world. And you just don't see that in college. And so you get this like these bang bang plays, and it's like they almost kicked out Georgia Tech's like only semi decent player. And I was like, oh man, and I don't know, like Georgia Tech, somebody help your quarterback out. That dude deserves better than what the team he has around him, dude.
Yeah, that one is tough, and you're right, and I do think that rule is it's just tough, man. They got to figure out something with intent there because it can be really tough, and like you said, it doesn't look anything like it used to. It really doesn't look scary almost ever anymore. It does happen, but even when it happens, it's generally not with intent. So It is really tough, and I don't even want to make you linger on this. I'll just own one for me and Dugan. Me and Dugan jumped hard. I shouldn't say hard, but we did sprain our ankles a little bit, like on Utah versus Florida. And I just want to bring this up too because I want to touch on this game. I don't remember where you stood on this, but we definitely leaned on Utah. And honestly, I don't really have any regrets. Utah, in my opinion, looked great. That was just like a well-played football game. Florida ended up being at home. Anthony Richardson was every bit as electric as we had talked about as, we had our guests, Gordy and Braden Gall talking on. Like, I don't think there was anybody that was down or feeling bad about Anthony Richardson, and the guy was just freaking awesome. That was just like that was a great football game. By the way, if you watch that game, like you were absolutely rewarded week one for watching college football. I'll let you take that from there, but I just want to make sure we talked about that because I thought Anthony was just like absolutely special, and that game was awesome.
See,
but we were wrong.
I didn't agree with you guys on the Utah against the spread favorite there. I took the over, and I think I said specifically I just wanted to watch a good game. It was a good game. It was I think it was a 50.5, and like that narrowly hit. But no, dude, that's what you want. That's the pageantry of college football. And I know you guys fired on that, and I was thinking about it whenever I like, oh, they were wrong. But that's not like a bad pick. At the end of the day, the interesting thing here is that's supposed to be the class of the Pac-12 against quite honestly, middle of the road SEC. And I know it was in Gainesville, but like, I don't know. I'm fading Florida this week. I'll get into that later, but I
knew that would come up. We got a game this weekend for sure.
Early in the season, like when you're doing these non-con games, like I look at it and I'm like, sometimes you just ride with the reputation of the conference. And to me, that was a big part of it. But that over, great, but I don't blame you guys for betting on Utah. I don't know. I looked at it, I'm like, I didn't like that line. It was too close. And then it swung the opposite way. So it was like 6-point difference from the line itself. But it wasn't, that's not anything you can feel bad about.
Yeah, that's one of those ones. That's what I'm saying. Like sometimes you're just going to ride with what your gut is. And honestly, if you lose on the, Utah had it in hand, right? Bird in hand. Like they first and goal, time was there. Cam Rising looked great. He finally made a mistake and a big time play by Florida and great game. But like you said, like that was a great college football. When you lose that way, of course, it hurts a little bit. But honestly, you can't even feel bad about it, right? You had a team that was in it. What you don't want to see is every team go out and lose 50-3, and you're like, oh, boy.
Oregon. That's my next.
Okay, Oregon. Yeah, please. Like, please go right ahead.
Man, was I wrong on that one. That was, and my justification was that they looked so good last year, but what a fool I was. Oh, my God. Man, it doesn't matter. 17.5, 25.5, 42.5. Georgia looked unbelievable. And that was me. That was a spite bet because Georgia screwed me with all their players drafted in the NFL draft on that stupid last football hurrah bet of the year. And man, they look
I
good.
mean, I will say this is one where it's so counter to your last one, and which is where this is where it gets tough, guys. Like where you really think you know these teams. Like so for me and Dugan, like I think we felt like really confident about Utah. We really kind of knew what their DNA was. Same thing. I think we felt really nervous about Oregon about, right? Like you're less of a Pac-12 fan, right? So you're looking at it through a different lens of like, hey, Oregon shows up for some of these games. Obviously, they had a big one last year, and you can fall in love with those things. As to where we saw them more throughout the year, and I'm like, God, they were like kind of just I don't know. They were okay in the Pac-12, and they definitely won some good games, and they're still a good program and all of those things. But we were a little more hesitant on that one. Not that we were like bullish by any means in saying, but we were just like, just stay away from this. We don't know yet. And so if you guys as listeners can figure out the perfect balance between when Ben's right and when we're right, God, you'll be so good. You'll be so good at this.
It's about who's the most persuasive person, I think, And
yeah,
my opinions seem to be stronger sometimes.
I do think I like if you listen to it, I think our throwaway comments were undefeated.
Yeah.
If you can just listen to the person who's like quietly confident in the background whispering like not a chance, like that's probably the bet you should actually make. Like I don't know how to explain that or how to tell you how to interpret that, but as like I listen, and this is a sick thing that I do, I will sometimes listen to us because I'm just like, what are we saying? Are we crazy? Do we sound delusional? Is the audio any good? And you'll hear the throwaway stuff, and I'm like, I think everything we threw away was better than anything we gave away.
Oh yeah, in that game.
I'll say, I don't know. Do you have any other big losers? I mean, I don't think there was like a bunch. Like again, we talked about everything we talked it all out, right? So it's up to you to make those decisions. Like we're talking a lot of this stuff out.
A heartbreaker. I was at the hotel bar for that one, and it was like me and 5 other dudes, and I became like the older sibling of the bar because I was like, this TV is this channel, this TV is this channel, this TV is this channel, and it's like I don't care what everybody else at the bar says, I'm going to be the loudest person about it. And like everybody at the bar who's like a 40-year-old man on a business trip was like, what was the line again? And I'm like 20 and a half, and then OK State blew it. Great game. But man, like I was salty about that one. The backyard brawl in particular, like
have to talk about it.
JT Daniels looked bad. Really bad in my opinion. Like I was kind of riding with like the idea that like granted, West Virginia was in that game and like I know West Virginia covered the spread, but I was going money line on it and like some of that's emotional, whatever. Like that pick, man, like that was a heartbreaker, not so much as like a man, I messed up. Because like West Virginia was in that thing. That overcashed easily, but
yeah, that one hurt the team. We were obviously like riding high on the Appalachian Trail there, and we just went for it, and we were all like, "Hey, man, let's do this, man. We're gonna go money line. We don't care what it means." But we wrote it. But again, like that was a game that I'm not sitting here saying like no one cares, right? If you lose the money's gone. Like so that sucks. But we were, again, the game we were in, and at times I was like, hey man, this might actually hit. Appalachian State gave it a good run to North Carolina. Like all those ones that we were on, like. We didn't look crazy. So I'm happy about that. We're definitely not winners in any of those scenarios, but happy about that. And I mean, I think outside of that, I mean, look, we had some losers, but what are some of the ones you're proud of? And honestly, too, I just want to talk a little bit about your Penn State because, boy, do they have me nervous. And I didn't touch that. I never touched that that money line from Purdue. But like I told you, I was eyeing it. I'm like, Penn State made me nervous. I'm glad I didn't have any money in that game because they would have made me nervous all game, but they did survive.
Well, it's amazing. You look at the box score and you're like, Sean Clifford, 4 passing touchdowns, 270 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. You look at it and you're like, that was great. And then you look at his completion percentage and you watch the game and you're like, man, this dude is a known commodity. I'm over it. I'm glad they won. I'm glad I juiced the line down to 2.5 because obviously the 3.5 like main line spread was ended up covering for Purdue because Vegas is still Vegas. But I was really excited when did you hear the rumors that he like went and like had diet, like he pulled a Lamar Jackson and had like the Hershey squirts.
Yeah, I saw the interview where he's basically having to be like, well, it was injury stuff. Like, you can't talk about it, wink, wink, but it's injury stuff with a smirk.
Kind of similar to the Cade Klubnik at Clemson. Drew Alar looks to be the real deal. And, like, I know he only threw 4 passes, but he had better pocket presence in those 2 completions. I know he went 50%, but hold on, bear with me. Like, kid's a freshman quarterback rolling out, like, pressure all over the place, and he's completing passes on the run. He had probably, I want to say, like 25-yard down the field pass that hit the third string tight end right in the hands, and he dropped it. And then his 4th pass was maybe 6 inches behind a guy on a crossing route. Like, that dude has everything that, like, this is why I love recruiting, because, like, and I talked about this when we did the Big Ten preview, like, it just gives you a reason to be hopeful. And, like, this is how sick of a individual I am. If you know anything about Drew Alar, his offensive line in high school was so bad that he's so used to being chased all the time and throwing on the run that it just makes me excited, because, like, Penn State's offensive line didn't look good. And it's like he felt right at home. Like, he felt right at home with big boys chasing him down. It was a stressful game, man. Like, oh my gosh, like, that was one of the worst. I was like, I don't know. Like, the game they could be down 2 touchdowns and there's 4 minutes left. I'm like, they could do it. They could do it. But, like, I did not account for the white boy from Iowa transfer who had like 12 catches for 150 yards. But Joey Porter looked great. I don't know how much people pay attention to this stuff, but Joey Porter Jr., first-round draft pick potential, probably solidified it in that game.
He looked awesome.
The most pass breakups since Pro Football Focus started tracking that stat in 2014.
Yeah, that's an NFL guy. He jumped off the screen. I watched way more Big Ten football than I could have possibly wanted to. Although I say that, but, like, of course my eyes are glued. But as I watch Big Ten football again, I forget what a pain it can be. But boy, did he look good. I mean, that was an NFL guy for sure. And the rest of the field, I'm going like, I don't know. And the one thing I'll say too about just that game that always, this is what piques my curiosity about USC and UCLA overall, is like when you watch Purdue and they just kind of kept the game open, and they've continued to be competitive against, like, some of the better teams in the Big Ten. I just think, like, with USC's receivers, like, why won't they just be really good? And I'm not saying they'll just walk in and win the whole thing, but if you think USC is not going to be competitive, it's like hard to watch Purdue and think that that's possible. You know what I mean? You're like, well, Purdue can hang with Penn State, and Penn State I still put in that, that top tier. Obviously they're not Ohio State, but outside of that, right? Like, who is? So that's where it's something that makes me think,
honestly, about that game is, like, I talked up Purdue a lot in the Big Ten preview. I talked up Aiden McConnell in particular. He led the Big Ten in completion percentage. Penn State held him to 50% completion percentage. And you don't take a 6-year senior and drop his completion percentage by 20 points unless you have a good secondary. I know that white boy from Iowa was all over the field, but, like, Penn State doesn't rotate defensive backs. Joey Porter plays, if you're looking out at the defense, the left side. Kalen King plays the right. And they just kept throwing to the left. I don't know why, whatever. But, like, Penn State's secondary is legit. And I'll use Caden McConnell's completion percentage as a testament to that. I was very, very excited by that. That the defensive performance in that, it was a great game. I don't want to. I could talk about that Penn State game for hours, but very excited by that one, man. Like,
we're gonna have to cut you off. You'll talk for literally 2 hours about it. So just for equal time, and I'll just get my homer stuff out now too. Another definite win on the. And this is all Dugan, really. I ultimately did ride with him on the Cats. This was a nice weekend saver as well in terms of just taking the over, parlaying that with the Cats win. And they look good against San Diego State, man. Like, I don't want to talk about it forever because there's plenty of local coverage. And if you're a Cats fan, you watched. The uniforms look great. They actually looked athletic. They looked competent in almost all areas outside of a punt that they blocked themselves. But in general, they had athletes. They had receivers open. They were able to run the football. They took away San Diego State's strength, which is running the ball. And they did everything we asked them to do. And it put a bunch of money in a lot of Wildcats fans' pockets. If you were just a little bit of a believer, it was a great over, a great win, a cover. They did it all. So however you took it, like you came out a winner. And so just bear down, and a great call by Dugan I'm glad he like really set the fire, because I mean, I still said it with caution, but at the end of the day, I just couldn't help myself either. Took the bite and was rewarded. So I don't even know if you watched that one, and I don't. It's okay if you didn't, because
I was pretty lit at that point.
Just yeah, it was yeah, and no worries. I know you had a wedding and there's a lot going on. No, that was a late. Yeah, I mean, it was East Coast a little later, whatever. But I just wanted to make sure we got that one in there. Are there any other big winners you want to talk about? I'm sure we'll be able to talk about a little bit of the landscape too as we talk about next week. But if there's anything else you just want to touch on,
real quick, Rutgers money line winners as the dog was sick. I know I had him on the points, but sing us a song, the Shiano Man, dude. That guy, I'm telling you, Rutgers is going to be sneaky in some of these non-con games.
Yeah, good coach. It's hard to, I mean, that'll keep you in it. Like, whatever you think of Shiano, like, the guy knows ball. It's what he's always wanted to do. It's all he's ever going to do. He's just a football guy. So he's going to win some games. I don't know. Are you covering any of the bets on the Iowa or LSU? I want to talk about them otherwise, but if you have them in bets, we can kind of cover it then.
I have them in the next. I have them in my picks for this week.
Great. Well, if you want to jump into some of that, then I mean, I'll kind of just let you lead. I know you have some ones that you like. I'll throw in commentary if I feel like it's necessary, but I'm just going to let you fire, man. Like I said, it's a fire from the hip night. Me and you are rolling. We're out here, just a couple bachelors, just hanging out. I mean, that's not really. I mean, that's not true. Like I have it, but it just feels like it tonight. We're away. Yeah. So whatever you got, man, fire away, and I'll just kind of fill in some blanks and maybe talk some college football as you go.
I have no chronological order on this in my. I think I did this chronologically, and then I realized that I really just kind of bounce around on the slate as I'm looking at it. I love the Arkansas over this week. I like KJ Jefferson. I know we talked about it a little bit last week. I don't know, man. Like some of these, sometimes early on, it's just like fire on the overs. Don't do the spreads. Don't do money lines. Just do the over. I got Arkansas over. Some of these lines moved negatively for me more this week than last week, but some of them are favorable. I don't know what it's at now, but I like the Arkansas over.
It's at 52.5 right now. They're playing South Carolina. South Carolina visiting Arkansas. Arkansas looked very good last week, handling business. As you mentioned, KJ Jefferson, an absolute baller. And, South Carolina coming to town, maybe a little bit interesting, but I generally like Arkansas. I like Arkansas on a lot of things. But if you like points in this game, did you like? I mean, hey, that's fun. There's no doubt that's fun, and certainly you have two good quarterbacks in this game, or at least two quarterbacks that are well-known commodities by name. So fire away in the over. But I just like Arkansas, man. I think you can ride. I rode Arkansas a lot early last year. They're minus 8.5. I'm not saying do it, but I'm definitely saying keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I mean I feel like Big Ten unders and maybe SEC overs. I don't know if there's any data to back that up. I
think that I think the data would be in like all the conversations had with the SEC guys, and all the conversation was quarterbacks. That didn't used to be the case in the SEC.
No,
but there's quarterbacks galore in the SEC. So no matter what you think of the defense, like these quarterbacks can score points. So and as we, me and you have talked about it on the side, but I mean, go ahead and lay it out here if you like. It's just a lot more fun to bet an over. Like betting an under is a miserable experience. There's a part of me that just says like, just bet the under on everything, and you probably actually make money. But like, again, this is all about fun. Like I heard it said, recently too, that like, hey, like gambling's just for like rich people to do to lose money. So you got to like take that approach going into it. Like it's got to be money you can lose. It can't be money that you think you should win or think that you've earned or deserved. But it doesn't mean that you can't win, right? But a lot of sports, call them, gamble responsibly always. But I mean, like you should be doing this for fun. You shouldn't be doing this to pay your rent.
No, definitely not. It kind of sticking on the SEC, dude. Like I know it's a non-con game, but like, everybody's like every year, everybody's like, Texas is back. Texas is back. No, they're not. Alabama's going to stomp them. I think that line's moved a little bit, maybe a point or a half point, but take Bama. Don't overthink this one. I know
It's
they got Quinn Ewers.
Bama minus 20.5 right now. Do you know where you got it at?
I got it at 20. So
Okay.
it's still below 3 touchdowns. They're probably going to win by 5. This is like that classic thing where you're like, big name schools. Doesn't matter. Bama is a different class than everybody else. They are one of those 3 big dogs that just, they're not the same as everybody else. They could probably beat the Jaguars. Like Bama minus 20 against Texas, who's recruiting well, but they're not back yet.
Yeah, totally understand. And I would just say this is a great game to watch. Like if you're a running back guy, this is going to be a chance for Bijan Robinson. Yeah, versus an Alabama defense. And I don't know what that's going to mean. And it might look bad and it might look great. This is either a game where Bijan moves into the Heisman, maybe even in a loss, right? But maybe he does something special against this Alabama defense, or maybe he just has a tough game and you say, I don't know. But I definitely think it's a great game to watch. And I'm just, honestly, that's just one that's fun to have on the slate. And it is hard I don't know what to think, to be honest with you, but it's definitely one you want to kind of get your fingers in because it's just such a good game and you know you're going to be watching.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should overthink it. Bama is a world above them. Maybe we go by conference here. That almost seems easier, Like
I'm with it.
The next one I got is Tennessee as against the spread favorite. That line's moved negatively, I think, against me, or maybe positively.
Tennessee minus 6.5 right now.
All right, so depending on what sports book, some of them are moving against me, but I get that Pitt won. I get that Pitt won a rivalry game, but it's SEC versus ACC. This is my conference bias playing into this. Take Tennessee. They got a great offense. West Virginia did not, and they almost lost to West Virginia. I'm taking Tennessee as a touchdown favorite against Pitt. Tennessee doesn't have good defense, though. But
yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's definitely an interesting one. Like, I wouldn't expect a lot out of Pitt's offense either. I mean, I don't think they really proved that. I think they proved their defense is tough, so it'll be a good test. I think one score, though. I mean, I do like Tennessee late in a touchdown and an extra point. I mean, I still kind of like that. So I like where your head's at on that. Keep in mind it's at Pittsburgh, but again, very emotional game last week. I don't think Tennessee was dealing with the same thing. They've proven to be a pretty solid squad. I like where your head's at on that one. Do you have any more SEC action, or are we moving somewhere else?
We got Kentucky, Florida. This is where I am I took Florida State money line on. I'm mixing up my games. God damn it. Sorry.
Are we staying on Kentucky, Florida? I'll give you a quick break.
Yeah, I'm good.
You have Kentucky at Florida, minus 5.5. Florida's given up 5.5 at home versus Kentucky, and this has been a bit of a bugaboo for Florida of late.
I've been drinking, so don't judge me for it. But this is where I'm looking at conference strength versus conference strength. If the best of the best in the Pac-12 doesn't really hang with the middle of the pack SEC, I like middle of the pack SEC dogs against the spread. So I got Kentucky as the dog on this one against the spread.
I mean, are you feeling money line Frisky plus 184?
I do like Richardson a lot, man. I don't know. I'm not a glutton for punishment. I'd rather take the field goal plus dog in this one, basically. And, they could pull out the money line, but again, it's how do you judge conference games if you haven't seen them play against each other much? The SEC is famous for this. They don't play each other. They only play, 9 conference games or 8 conference games when everybody else plays 9. It's so hard to judge how they're going to be against each other. It's like I don't know enough yet to take Kentucky money line. But they were good last year. I know they lost their best receiver, but at the end of the day, it's good quarterback versus good quarterback. It's enough that I'm like, dude, if Kentucky loses by a field goal, that's fine. But I like Kentucky plus 4. I got it at 4.5. I think it moved to 5.5. But that's
yeah, you're at 5.5 now. So yeah,
people reacting to the Florida Utah game.
100%. The one thing I will say though, I mean, if you watch Anthony Richardson, it's going to be very hard to put your money against Anthony Richardson moving forward. It's like whether, I mean, you can do it. I'm not saying that he's, proven he's going to be undefeated, but he definitely gave you like, oh, I think this kid might be pretty special vibes. And if you're going to be counting against him late, it's just going to be stressful. I'm not saying you will be right or wrong, but it's going to be stressful.
Yeah. I don't feel phenomenally about that pick. That's probably the worst pick I feel about on my slate. But I look at it and I'm like, why not? Like, if Will Levis is actually going to be a first round pick, he needs to win that game.
Yeah, yeah, they got a good quarterback too, and there's other people out there putting them on upset alert. So you're not alone out there. And shoot, you might even be able to this might be one where you wait it out, and by the end of the thing, Florida's favored by 7. I mean, I don't know that it's going to change. It might totally swing last minute. All the sharps come in on Kentucky, but right now you actually gained a point on this one if you're waiting it out and you believe in Kentucky.
Don't bet too early or bet on the wrong side of being too early. Either way,
you never know, man. You never know. What do you got next?
The only other SEC game I have, and I'm sorry, Mississippi State to beat U of A.
Not offended.
U of A looked great. The line opened at 9. I think it was at 10.5 when I saw this tonight.
10.5.
Everybody agrees with me. If everybody agrees, it must be a genius. But that's bottom tier SEC versus bottom tier Pac-12. You got to assume that Mississippi State's got better athletes, even if they are Mississippi State.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing there, honestly, is just that we didn't really get to see Arizona secondary last week. San Diego State was pretty inept throwing the ball, and so it's going to be a completely different stress level on those linebackers, safeties, and DBs to come up and hit. Right? They're going to extend their run game through the pass game and throw the ball into the flats. They're going to spread you. So it's an interesting one. I don't have a great feel one way or the other. Obviously, Arizona made me feel really good last week. But I do think the crowd's going to be into it. This will be the first time in a long time they've had some excitement coming back after a big win. They have an SEC team coming to town. So I think it'll be interesting. I kind of like it, with Arizona with the points to kind of hang in there. I might be pressed to actually go money line, but but the line keeps moving. I mean, So
once you're at that 10.5,
it's interesting.
You're in kind of this critical zone where it's like touchdown, field goal. Yeah. It starts becoming worth the risk, but I got it at 9. I like Mississippi State to win by a touchdown and a field goal at least, but if the line keeps moving, keep an eye on it.
Yeah. I don't think betting the SEC versus a Pac-12 team that now has all of 2 wins in the last 2 years is anything, that I can really shame you on. So probably right. Just giving you the homework perspective as best I can.
Yeah. I do have obviously a lot of Big Ten ones, but maybe I hit some of these ACC ones real quick. UNC looked so bad, and I know that was like that toss up, that weird. It's rotating between App State's a favorite, UNC is a favorite, and back and forth. I think the only thing I really learned in that game is that UNC has one of the worst defenses in Power 5 football. So I'm probably riding UNC overs the entire year. And I got UNC over 64.5. I don't think that line's moved at all, but I got UNC over 64.5. If you can give up 40 points in a quarter, I don't even know how that is possible. They could have given up 160
college
points.
Football. It's college football. They stop the clock on first downs for a second to place that ball, and then it just gets wild.
Oh, my gosh, their defense is bad.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that, too. We talked about it. I mean, hey, that's why, again, were we right? Did Appalachian State actually finish the job? No. But did they both score over 60 points, and was that a game? Yes. We warned you that North Carolina was not particularly good. Did we get aggressive and go on money line? Perhaps. But hey, man, this is what we're giving you we're telling you what's going on in college football, and then it's up to you to decide where the money fits.
They have a good quarterback. Their quarterback actually looked better than Sam Howell. At least what Sam Howell looked like last year.
No, he agree. The North Carolina kid looks good. He did make plays, but the team as a whole looks like a giant question mark.
Oh yeah, I'm good quarterback play from UNC with a bad defense sounds like a recipe for overs the entire year. So
yeah, love that.
The other one for me in this, before we kind of get into some crossovers, Syracuse looked very dominant against Louisville. And I know the Orange Men might be the most intimidating mascot of all time, but man, that over with how good they looked against Louisville, who isn't good, but isn't the worst team. Syracuse over 52. I like that a lot. Their quarterback, I think, was either the number one or number two rated quarterback for week one by Pro Football Focus. Good quarterback, low points. I like this one. I like Syracuse over 52.
I like it. Babers in that offense has been known to score. So, I mean, nothing crazy there. And again, I like that. You find an offense and you ride some overs. And then you know the defense is going to be bad because generally a lot of these teams have had bad defense for years. So, again, I think it's another – I like the mix again.
Yeah, I lied. I had one more. I don't even remember who Miami's playing at this point because it's 10:07 on Thursday night. But Miami playing some bad team. It opened at 25.5. Just take Miami. They looked good in the first game of the Cristobal era.
Yeah, minus 26. USM.
Yeah, take Miami.
I honestly don't even know. I'm honestly stumped. Which,
USM.
I'll just have to accept it. Yeah, I don't even. I
feel like that's the opposite of SMU, University of Southern Methodist, instead of Southern Methodist University. They're playing.
That's basically all I have. I'm like, is it Southern Missouri? Is there a Southern Michigan? I have nothing.
They're losing. Take 25.5. The one that maybe bleeds into my wheelhouse a little bit here is Northwestern at Duke. Neither team has looked particularly good. I mean, Northwestern beat Nebraska. Whatever, Nebraska sucks. I just like the under in this. This is the typical Big Ten under. Nebraska under on this one against Duke. Neither team is great. Not going to be a ton of points. 24-17, Northwestern probably wins it, or Duke wins it. Doesn't matter. The line's 10. I don't feel strongly about spread on this one. I like the under, though.
Yeah, we're through week one, so this is where you can really start to just lean on what conferences go over, what conferences go under. Look at these two teams. Look at the quarterback play. Probably both defenses are bad. What happened? Or both offenses are bad. And then you can just kind of say, this will just be an absolute punt fest. Neither of these teams wants to score. Fitzpatrick's going to be pretty conservative if they're in the game. Duke can't score. I mean, as far as I know, Duke can't score. They haven't proved that to me. So we're going to pretend like there was no technical difficulties whatsoever. This all went smooth and just assume that we're going to hop right back into college football. It definitely hasn't been, 12 hours since me and Ben talked last, that's for sure. But Ben, we're going to pick up right where we left off and into this smooth transition and hop right into USC. I know some of these picks we're getting into your wheelhouse of some games that you're excited about. So I'm really glad we're able to reconvene here and pick it up where we left off.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. This isn't necessarily my wheelhouse as much as it's probably yours, but I feel like with this USC Stanford game, it's almost like the line opened at 9. I'm not entirely sure where it's at right now, but I'm not sure how you could take Stanford to cover this game. Like USC, I don't know anything about them, but to me it just seems like 9 points, really, really, really low for a team that I don't think is that good in Stanford, but I'm just basing that off the fact that they're so smart that they don't have time to be good at football. Like Cardale Jones once said, I didn't come here to play school. And I feel like that's the opposite case for Stanford kids.
That's a great reference, by the way. Love that. Love me some Cardale. Great backup quarterback for the Chargers for a year.
Oh, yeah.
Really good stuff Cardale did in the NFL. But I'm with you, man. I just think
XFL too.
But USC looked – but I was like, but USC looked good last week, right? They rolled. I mean, granted, it was Rice. We had nothing to be excited about Stanford. There was a time when Stanford was feared. that seems to have come and gone. I don't know that they gave, like, I didn't watch Stanford last week, so I don't even really know what happened there. But just like the number does it looks right. So
Yeah.
I like this one. And then I guess now, we really get into your wheelhouse, because now we're going to talk a little Big Ten, right?
Oh, yeah. You want to do Wisconsin first?
Sure, let's hop into whiskey, man. They looked, I assume Wisconsin's just going to play defense and win 10 games like normal, but what do we got this week?
Well, it's kind of similar. It's actually, they looked pretty good. I feel like the start of the year, the last half of last portion of last year, Graham Mertz actually seemed to figure it out again after being really bad in the start of the season. So he kind of picked up where he left off the last few games, and they looked pretty good. It wasn't an exciting game by any means, but it does look like Wisconsin has a pretty maybe above par Big Ten offense, especially on the west side of the conference. So I'm taking this is going to hurt you a little bit, but Wisconsin over 46 against Washington State. I think the hope here is that Wisconsin will score 35, and then you're getting 10 to 14, maybe 17 from Washington State. I really like that one. And then I am actually going on the spread on this one as well with Wisconsin to cover. It was 17.5 originally. I'm not sure where it's at right now.
Yeah, still sitting at 17.5. Wisconsin's at home. I think that's probably good to point out. And it makes sense to me, man. I think this one, if you believe that if you believe that Wisconsin will score, like, the over seems, very doable. Like, I think it's reasonable to expect Washington State to at least score a little. They are a Power 5 school. You would hope they can get in the end zone once. But Washington State is just like, I feel like they're sad right now. So
I just think about Mike
Wisconsin
Leach
side of it.
Still.
But it's not. But it's not. So
I know.
Like, that's the thing. Like, it's not fun anymore. And then they're just like, they're kind of out there. Someone we work with is like got someone that was sending their kid to Oregon State. I kind of had similar vibes. I'm like, it's kind of just like somewhere, right? Like, you have to fly somewhere, then drive a couple hours. So, but Wisconsin doesn't have to do any of that. They're just going to be at home, and they just get to play football. And Wisconsin's pretty dang good at football. So when it comes to beating the teams they're supposed to, they typically handle their business.
And anytime I see like an over under in like the 40s, it scares the living crap out of me. But 46 is really low. So
you know which one I regret from last week? We talked about what was you remember the number on the Illinois game? It was Illinois played who? Help me out if you can remember.
Had the pick too. This might have been where the technical difficulties initiated yesterday. I went looking to find who an opponent was, and I think it might have crashed the app. But I took Illinois plus 3.5 against. Oh man, who was it? This is the problem. I was in the zone last night, and now I'm.
Hey, it's all right. Hey, it's okay. We're just. I know what happened though. Like, so I'll just kind of recap it with Team A and Team B. We had two Big Ten schools playing each other. We joked about how low the under was, and we talked about like, well, even that's a number for the Big Ten that makes me nervous. And then in classic Big Ten fashion, they were under by like 15 points. Like they cruised under. They were like both teams. Indiana, Illinois, right? Isn't that the game? It had to be Indiana, Illinois.
Yeah.
Like
it was Indiana,
the most
Illinois.
miserable experience. And then of course Indiana, like. Because Dugan, of course, made fun of me for betting Indiana last year in week 1 while we were in Vegas. So then I'm like in my head, like, oh, just don't touch this. And like, and then of course Indiana beats Illinois after we spoke well about Illinois and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, like, I don't think I put any money on anything, but I just was watching that game and was just kind of mad at it. Like, kind of wished I was in it and was just generally mad at the game.
Yeah, the line had moved to a position where Illinois didn't cover, but the original line did. I don't know. Do you want to go into the Illinois game, because I actually do have that one as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I'm big on Illinois this year. They were not that bad last year. I talked about it before. Brett Bielema being like red in the face just like makes me excited. I have them as money line. They are favorites. It's like a minus 200. It's part of a parlay. So normally, I know last week I was giving Dugan a ton of crap about no reason to take money line in college football, but if you're going to parlay it, that's probably the only time you really should. But they're against Virginia, and I'm not really big on Virginia. New coach, kind of similar to Virginia Tech. Like, just they don't really do as well as they should, given like where they're based and all that stuff. Like, I think the ACC is not that competitive of a conference, and I'm going to trust specifically Bielema to just power football, 14 offensive linemen and a fullback, no quarterback even, right, to just blast through that team and hopefully eke out a win. That spread was a little too. It was like, I think it was like 4.5 or something like that. I didn't want to touch it. So
yeah, it's 3.5 today, and the over/under's at 57, which 57 feels high for that game unless there's something about Virginia like that. I mean, I'm looking at it. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to throw, but it's an interesting number. It's definitely like calling me Big Ten. ACC might as well be a Big Ten school. I'm pretty sure they can't score.
I actually really like that under. I probably should have fired on that instead of the money line, but I'm just big on them this year just because I watched that first game and they just were running the ball and punting the ball and running the ball. And I like it. I don't know. I'm taking Illinois money line on that one.
Dig it. What else you got, man?
Want to talk about our least favorite state?
Yeah, let's get to it. I mean, honestly, this is the one thing I've been wanting to talk about the entire. Like, actually, we should have just led the show with it, but here we are. I'm glad we saved it for the encore, if you will. So if you hung in there, whatever weird audio you get, whatever re-intro you get, and you've been waiting for Ben in particular, but I mean, I've always been on the anti-Iowa train, and I assume that's where we're going. And I'm sure you're getting the rap for it, but I mean, I still keep retweeting from our stuff every time I get a chance to take a shot at Iowa. I'm taking it. They're in the crosshairs on this podcast.
When you look at that score last week and it's 7-3, if you don't know what happened, it was the most miserable game of all time. A field goal and 2 safeties by Iowa to do that. They are I think I heard somewhere they were the first team in like a century to like score 7 points and not have scored a touchdown on it too. It's almost impossible to do.
Yeah, Arizona beat Iowa at some point in life, like 5-3. And of course, Iowa was in that game too. The thing is that it's 7-3. But Ben, honestly, if I told you the final score was 7-3 and Iowa, like, isn't your guess sort of that it's actually a field goal and 2 safeties?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I don't know if I ever told you the story. One of the first Penn State games I remember as a kid was a 6-4 Penn State Iowa game. So talk about ineptitude. It's in their blood. They're crossbred. They're always run around their overalls and just too close to the stadium and all that stuff. I despise Iowa. I don't really have any strong feelings about Iowa State. I know nothing about their team. Last year, but
this game recognized as El Asico, which I think is the best name. Like, the Backyard Brawl, good name. Civil War, good name. I love this one as El Asico.
It's just some illiterate person in Iowa trying to describe the game to somebody. That's how they came up with it, I bet. It's ridiculous. It's
basically just other people that are making fun of it. Like, everybody wants to make – like, that's why I think we're fine. There's like 10 people in Iowa, and the rest of us are kind of making fun of them. And if you're – like, honestly, if you are an Iowa fan, like, we're sorry, but just hang in there. Like, we're just trying to – you're easy. You're an easy mark.
It's one of the worst offenses. It was really bad last year. It seems worse this year, and I don't understand it. I mean, I know I talked about it. I'm like, hey, like, they didn't get a good running game and all that stuff. But honestly, it's like they just can't do anything. Spencer Petras is horrible. And he's like one of those classic, like, when is this guy going to graduate? Like, dudes that you look at in college football. He's been there forever, it feels like, at this point. I don't even know anything about this, but like I'm rooting for Iowa State. I have them against the spread. I probably should have taken a money line, but I look at this and I'm like, if they are that bad again this week, Iowa State could probably just get safeties and beat them. Hell, let's get a 6-4 Iowa State game.
The over-under is 40. So, I mean, I don't think anybody, no one thinks that. I mean, I don't think anybody believes there's going to be a lot of touchdowns in this game. Matt Campbell's they're figuring out a new quarterback at Iowa State. That's one thing I do know. So, yeah. I just think this is a game, though, that is weirdly, it's like a game that I'm interested in.
I'll watch it.
It's a
for
game.
Sure.
Yeah, I should have zero interest in this game, but just because it's going to be stupid, I want to watch it. It's going to be block punts, it's going to be turnovers, it's going to be punts, it's going to be safeties, field goals.
They should do a prop bet on if there will be a safety in this game, and I would 100% take it.
Yeah, I mean, look, they racked up 2 last week. There are teams that won't rack up a safety all year. I mean, this is a safety forward program in Iowa.
Iowa's punter is actually pretty good at pinning inside the 10-yard line, so it kind of makes sense that they would have 2 safeties. That's how big of a degenerate I am with Big Ten football. I'm talking about Iowa's punter as an asset, but I really don't see any way that I could, even if I thought I was good, my pure hatred of that school has me taking Iowa State against them in a rivalry game, so that they're so upset because Penn State doesn't play Iowa this year. So I need to root for them to lose every game that they care about.
So this is it for you. This is the big one then.
Oh yeah. And they'll probably all be going to the bathroom at the urinal, pants around their ankles, like you said. That's what they do. To the best of my knowledge, it's what they do. No, it's what they do. It's 100% what they do. I roasted them pretty horribly in the Big Ten preview, but it's funny because I want to gush all my hatred out at them, but it's also I have a very good feeling that I'm going to be super happy about how their year goes. So I don't know. I guess I'll celebrate every loss that they have that much harder. Probably less more than me getting into the nitty gritty of hoping that they do lose. Once they do lose, I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they kind of do this thing where they win 10 games every couple years. So this is probably not the year, right? This goes right back to putting, Ferentz back on the hot seat again, so that he can be on the hot seat. They probably lose the next 2 years, then he's back on the hot seat. He wins 10 games again because of scheduling, and then they extend him for, they give him a lifetime contract. I mean, they're stuck forever. He owns their program. Iwan Ferentz, I can't even say his name right. Iwan Ferentz, Ferentz are going to be together forever. They're just destined for each other. This is what you get. You'll have him forever. I hope you enjoy 7-3 football.
It's wonderful. I don't have a lot of other ones left. I do. Obviously, I'll touch on Penn State on this one. The line's moved, I think, a half point as of last time I looked at it. I got it at 24.5. I know that Miami of Ohio actually played Kentucky pretty tight, but I think that had a little bit more to do with the offensive struggles that Kentucky had without their star receiver. And with Penn State coming in, I'm looking at this as I think they're going to go out. It's the home game. It's the first home game of the year for Penn State. I think that they get up, and then Penn State's backups do well enough against Miami of Ohio that they do cover this. Honestly, this should be a big Drew Alar game where you get to see that 5-star QB come in, kind of like Cade Klubnik did for the Clemson Georgia Tech game. I like the backups almost to not give up that garbage time touchdown, but to actually score, which sometimes is the kiss of death in these things when the spread's at 3.5 touchdowns here. But I have to root for that one, and I'm not going to take the over. I'm not going to take the under, and there's no way in hell I'm taking Miami of Ohio to cover it. I do think the defense is good enough to hold Miami of Ohio to a pretty low point total, and that one should be relatively easy, I hope. But then again, Vegas knows way more than I do.
Yeah, I know. That's one thing I will say too. We did talk about, and this is where we weren't sure. Like, I know me and Dugan talking on the side. I was like, because I can't keep track of all of your bets because you bet the entire board, and so like for my memory to remember all of those things without re-listening to everything, like I'm like, I can't tell if he's doing well at all. All I know is that as much as we were like, Vegas doesn't know anything, they still knew a lot, and I will say they had a lot of those games dancing right on the number, and freaking A, Vegas, man. But this one's a stay away from me. But if you're a Penn State fan, you got to trust in Ben. You got to ride with Bill's daddy.
They're gonna win. It's just, do they cover? And so like I can be happy on this one without covering. So like I'll take this bet, and then if they do blow them out, I'm like, oh, let's go. My team blew them out, and we won. But I don't know. I know it's not an exciting game. I don't anticipate anybody's going to watch this thing at 9 a.m. on the West Coast. Like, this is a classic, like, really boring game if you're not a Penn State fan, but I'm watching it, and I'll be very excited for it. I think they do cover. I only have one more Big Ten play, though, and that's just the Ohio State under. I think they got Arkansas State or some random school.
You're right.
Like, last week, this is me kind of basing this off of what happened last week. CJ Stroud was not in the game that long. So if you're looking at like a 68.5, almost 70 point total, you almost kind of need to think that they're going to have a bunch of need to get those guys in there. Last year, CJ Stroud played probably far longer because he was the new quarterback. With him being as experienced and seasoned as he is, I think Ryan Day is going to pull him relatively quickly once they get up 3-4 touchdowns.
Yeah, 45-0.
Their defense looked pretty good last week, so I don't anticipate Arkansas State being an offensive fire, powerhouse in that sense. And I know it's Ohio State's backups are probably better than every Arkansas State starter. But if you're waiting on second and third stringers to hit an over, I think you're probably in a good spot. So I like the under 68.5. I think it moved up to 69 and back down to 68.5.
Yeah, 69 right now. And then when Ohio State's favorite, when they're giving up 44, they're, like you said, that second line, that second unit is every bit as good as Arkansas State, and Vegas knows it.
Yeah, that's going to be a
That's a nail biter. Like a big number to chase. And Ohio State scores in bunches, and I'm sure they'll be wanting to get their offense rolling. But I could see it just this is kind of what I thought about like Michigan last week. And they covered by the hairs and the chinny chin chin there. But you're just like, man, they're going to score. But then at some point, the clock's going to run out. They're going to get bored with it. And they're just going to want to be healthy going into next week.
Yeah, and that's you're going to sweat this one. But I do think that under hits.
Yeah, I like that one too. I do like the under on that. I think that's a nice number. I mean, when the number's up at 69, 70, look, it can happen, but it's a big number. Like you said, you might be sweating it, but because Ohio State will put up points, and it probably will feel like it's happening very fast. But at some point, they got to put that thing in cruise control.
Yeah, you just got to weather the storm on that one. Don't panic, because they're going to score very quickly.
Turn off your alerts. Don't let don't get rattled at every Ohio State 60-yard touchdown. Just turn the alerts off.
You're hoping for
TV.
A lot of running from Arkansas State because they're trying to get out of the stadium, and then Ohio State's trying to get out of the stadium healthy, and it's I think the Michigan, to your point about the Michigan one last week, that was I think low 60s, and they beat the crap out of that team, but even they were just when it's at that range, you gotta take the under. I think sometimes on that. If it was a better team, I wouldn't touch it. But I think that wraps up my Big Ten slate. I just have a random K-State minus favorite here. I don't really know anything about them other than that they really started a cold streak for me last year against Oklahoma, and I listened to your Big 12 preview. It sounded like they were pretty high on them. I'm a sucker for when I don't know something and one person says something with the slightest amount of passion, and I'm like,
just a little bit of conviction, and I'm in. Yeah, I know. Look, every one of us hit on West Virginia. I'm like, hey, you kind of believe it? Hey, I kind of believe it. I mean, I went into that last week like, hey, I'm not sure about this game, but I kind of like was thinking maybe West Virginia, but didn't even want to say it. You guys both said it, and I was like, dude, I'm totally sold West Virginia all day by 50.
Yeah, that's a 3 weeks ago. Somebody said something convincingly, and I'm like, sure, let's do it. But believe it or not, that wraps up my slate of college football picks. You're welcome for all 18 certified winners that I just gave you guys. Parlay them all, put the mortgage on it, call 1-800-GAMBLER. But yeah, that is. I think those are all the printing money this week, boys. I'm confident as hell in this slate.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, all in all, everybody on this podcast, I think, was on the plus side and was a winner last week. However they got there, and just keep in mind too, like the cool thing now is you got live betting. If something starts to go crazy, you can always try to hedge it in another direction. Like you can watch these games and just say like you can watch DJ and be like, man, he's not going to put Clemson in the end zone. And maybe now I'm feeling really good on a first half under or whatever the case may be. So, if you got a little extra money to play with, like keep a little extra in your pocket to throw down on some live bets too, because things can change quickly. And you can either hedge your way out of it or flip on something or capitalize on just something that you see. So if the 18 winners aren't working, fire a few more.
Oh yeah. And one of my favorite things to do with live betting is wait for the at least in NFL, I know it's not necessarily the exact same in college football. You have to be a little bit more confident when you do it in college football. But as soon as that, like either the underdog scores first and all of a sudden that line shrinks just a tiny bit where it's like below, like, you drop from like a 7.5 line down to like a 6.5, like fire on that.
Exactly.
Like that's the best way to do it. Granted though, if the line's like 25, like maybe don't do that. But those close lines, like they move enough when it's live that sometimes you can catch a really nice spread and you're sitting in a good spot.
And then with that, man, I'll just transition us. And we don't have to talk about this a bunch, but I just want to talk about it because the NFL weekend is upon us. I know we obviously talked about the Rams game earlier and the reaction on that. It's kind of funny now, even a day later, it's like, I'm like, hey, pump the brakes. And everybody's like, the Rams are a disaster. Everybody bail, burn the ships. But
did you see all the real quick on the Rams thing? Did you see all the accusations that Stafford is racist against Allen Robinson?
No, I didn't.
He only wants to throw the white guy.
He really does have only eyes for Cooper Kupp, though. I mean, one target for Allen Robinson is pretty tough for a guy who's been a pretty damn good wide receiver in this league.
You heard it here first, or maybe on Twitter, but yeah, Stafford, problematic. That's the benefit of the 12 hours.
He did have that moment where he remember when he bumped that person off the stage and he just kind of was like, oops, and kind of turned around and his wife went and checked on the person. I mean, he's been problematic.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's okay.
But what are you excited for this weekend? I mean, is there a game that you're excited for? Are you just excited to plug into Red Zone? Are you excited about fantasy? Just give the people anything that you're stoked about. I know personally, I'm already looking at 2 fantasy injuries since my draft on Monday, and I'm going, what the hell? How did you guys get hurt in the week when no one's even doing anything? So I'm already shifting my lineup, so I have those problems. We're looking at survivor pools and trying to figure that out. But anything that you're excited about, or?
I mean, to your point about the injuries, I got all excited because I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. They're like, yeah, Chris Godwin, he's good to go. He's got it ready to go. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I got him super late in my draft. And then it's just kidding. He may not play. So that, I'm dealing with that too. I'm in a very competitive fantasy league and I spend most of my time in that league talking as much smack to the commissioner as possible. I tried to do a coup last year. And it did not work out successfully, but he talked a lot of smack and I got a good start on my matchup. I'm not playing him, but I just want to win so that I can continue the smack talking. Cooper Kupp gave me 28 points last night. So I was excited by that. I'm excited to just get back into fantasy. NFL is a little bit different for me because I love the Steelers, but when when you can lose 7 games and still make the playoffs, like I feel like for me, like I have a harder time living and breathing by the outcome of those events as much as I would in college football. So like I just enjoy watching as many games as possible, and then to me, it's one of the best things to bet on. I love betting on like next drive result, and like you catch like a juicy like turnover, next drive result turnover, and it's like let's go. So gonna be a good gambling weekend. To your point, I have a bunch of my balance kind of sitting to the side just to be ready to fire on some NFL stuff that strikes my eye. But I'm looking forward to obviously like the Bengals Steelers game. I'm cautiously optimistic that Mitch Trubisky will not be as bad as he was in Chicago, because let's be honest, Chicago is a hard place to be good. And maybe they do a little something against the Bengals, but who knows, man? I'm excited to have a week 1 rivalry game. I'm excited to see, honestly, like it's cool when you come like the season starts and it's just like nobody really knows if that all those off-season trades are going to make a difference. Like the Eagles adding like everybody and their mom to the roster. I don't know how they have any cap space. I felt like they did everything right in the off-season, but it's still the Eagles. Like, I don't know. I'm excited to see what the Eagles look like. I'm excited to honestly like just kind of get a glance at a lot of these quarterbacks in new places. I mean, we had so many this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. And someone's got to step up. So, I mean, it could be, I think Mitch is interesting. I think all the Eagles hype is interesting, right? Like we still don't really know. Like people are down on Hurts. Now they're up on Hurts, and then they're down on Hurts, and now we're back to being up on Hurts. I'm a Chargers guy. We have the Raiders coming in. Obviously, the Raiders made some nice moves. AFC West is just generally crazy. But stop me, you've heard this before. The Chargers, are getting a lot of offseason hype. And so does that actually ever mean anything? Typically, no. Is this year different? I'm excited to find out. Obviously, I believe in Justin Herbert, but we have a long way to go and a lot of things to prove in a division full of quarterbacks now. Like, I mean, if Derek Carr is the worst quarterback in your division, that's a tough division to play in. So
AFC West
to see my guys get going.
AFC West is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's and we play the NFC West, which normally would be scarier, but now all of a sudden that looks pretty good, because if you're like, well, if the Rams aren't the same and Russell's not in the, so it's I'm just excited to get the storylines going, man. Once the NFL gets going, it's king. It changes week to week, right? Yeah, it's like once it gets going, it's going to change week to week. So I'm kind of glad we're not doing a whole long preview, because as you can see, you watch Bills Rams and everything changes now. And now you're like, man, are the Rams only like a 10-win team sneaking in, and the Bills now are looking at like the first seed, but it's week 1. It's week 1. We don't know, and injuries ultimately dictate a lot of this action.
Well, it's like when Tom Brady got injured and then Matt Castle stepped in. Like, you never know what could happen in the middle of the year. It's why I don't really like NFL futures either, because it's like that kind of injury can just destroy everything. And I heard a pretty juicy take that, Tampa Bay is not going to be that good this year, but it's not because Tom Brady's old, which I thought was an electric idea. Just that they were not going to be as up there. And it's like, I love watching Tom Brady lose. It's the put up or shut up year for Tua. And there were so many. I don't know if I can remember an off season where this much changed. You know what I mean? Like Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, Devontae Adams. Like there is so much unknown. AJ Brown to the Eagles. I mean, oh my gosh!
Yeah, like AJ Brown, Khalil Mack. Like, yeah, you can go on. Yeah.
Big Ben retired. Like, I don't even know how you can predict anything in this league when it's like this much stuff changed, and this is kind of our first glance at like what this is all going to really shake out to be. And even then, it doesn't really matter. Teams that start 0-3 going crazy runs, like. I do it's a Hard Knocks effect. I watch Hard Knocks and I think that team's going to be the best team ever. And like, I kind of believe the Lions could do something this year. And it's like, it's such a fun time of year. And I'm so into kind of seeing where all this shakes out. But I don't know, man, like it's football season. I'm going to drink so many beers on Saturday and Sunday. And and we get to do it again Monday, and then we just take a few days off, and then we got Thursday again, and it's like, how do you beat this time of year? The next 5 months, or it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I will say, like, in terms of what we kind of talked about with college football, I think this is when, like, maybe you can sneak past Vegas on a couple of these, because there are some, like, money line, like, underdogs at home.
Oh God, yeah.
And we don't know anything about these teams. Like I don't really know that the Texans. I mean, the Texans are getting 7 at home versus the Colts. Like, sure, the Colts should be better, but I mean, you really have to believe in Matt Ryan and really believe that Jonathan Taylor is going to run all over everybody. But if you don't believe that, you get 7 at home with Houston, and I don't know. Davis Mills played okay last year. They probably suck, but maybe they don't. I don't know. Might be something they're sprinkling on. There's plenty of those games.
This is the week
honestly, I would stay so far away from the Lions, by the way. I would not touch the Lions.
Well, if you're taking the Lions, take the dogs on the Lions. That's what I was going to say. It's like, because NFL is so tight anyway, and then you have no idea what these guys are doing. Like, I mean, you get 5.5, 6.5, 7, like, why not?
5.5 at home for the Lions, 5.5 at home for the Falcons versus the Saints. I don't know. Maybe you believe in the Saints, maybe you don't.
It's Jameis Winston, man. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Future Hall of Famer.
Jameis Winston is my favorite quarterback in the NFL. If you want to talk about someone who's absolutely electric, I mean, anybody can get the ball on any play. And I love that about Jameis. Like, someone can score every time he drops back. Now, it could be either team. But, I mean, I remember once being in Seattle watching a game on a Sunday and just saying out loud, like, there's nothing better than Jameis Winston, because – and like, just having a table of guys to the right of me being like, it's the best, right? Like, it's a pick six, it's a touch. Like, we just know there's points when he drops back. And that's exciting. It's exciting to know that there's going to be points every time he drops back, because he'll spray it anywhere.
Well, did you know that he apparently had horrible eyesight and never wore corrective lenses until last offseason?
Yeah, the guy, between that and his training regimen, and the fact that the guy was like a legit D1 baseball player, he is like just he's the most interesting man in the world.
He's eating W's. Like, the eating W's, people don't talk about it anymore. He ate a W in a huddle of grown men.
He stole crab and got suspended for a game. I mean, this guy just, like, I can't wait for I'd read the Jameis Winston book. I mean, I would read it. I mean, I'd love to see it in a documentary form, but I would probably read the book about Jameis Winston's life.
There's a 30 for 30. What if I told you those crab legs changed everything? Like, I don't know, exactly. Man. I love Jameis. Dude, like, I think he was the first quarterback in like a long time to throw for 30 touchdowns and 30 picks in the same year. Like, he's the perfect. I might just bet on the Saints, dude. Who cares? Like, it's so.
Yeah.
And like,
get in there, man.
I like the Vikings. I don't like Kirk Cousins, but I like the Vikings. I mean, it's survivor pools this time of year are the worst, though. I'll tell you that. Like, I know I just recruited you to get into mine, but survivor pools.
Yep. We'll see.
Weeks 1 and 2, it's a bloodbath. Like, Aaron Rodgers did me so dirty last year. Like, the one game he lost and then rattled off like 12 in a row. Good luck. If you're in a survivor pool, good luck. Make it through the first 4, and then you actually know who's good. I'm like already convinced I'm going to lose week 1 again. Every time I'm in a survivor pool, I lose week 1 or I lose week 2, and then I'm forced to run it for like 50 people or however many people are left for the rest of the season. It sucks.
Yeah, that's the thing. All of this brings as much joy as it does. It brings an equal amount of pain. I mean, I mean, like you mentioned the fantasy stuff and talking trash to your commissioner. One of our buddies was in there, and he starts popping off at everybody, and then the commissioner lays out his finishes, and he's got like 4 11th place finishes out of 12 in the last like 6 years, and he's like, "Yeah, keep talking, bud." I love it. Like, everybody's completely delusional about how good they are at this, how bad their friends are at it, and the truth is we're all bad, and we're just hoping we get lucky the right weeks at the right time.
You want to hear what?
The NFL's tough, man. It's razor thin.
You want to hear like the best dunk I had on the commissioner, though? So I've called him a con man. I've called him like, communist and all this stuff, just like try to rattle him. And he It's because he messed with the scoring one year. He messed with the scoring and weighted things inappropriately and like whatever. And so like I've been going at him for pretty much something that happened 4 years ago for the last 4 years. And last year I had the I had the first overall pick, and McCaffrey obviously does what McCaffrey does and gets injured. And like in spite of that, I made the playoffs. And then he's like talking smack on me for like not being that good. And I just Yahoo does this wonderful thing for trash talking where it shows your historical win-loss record.
Yeah,
I had the highest in my league, and I beat him by like 20 points. And then in this group chat of like 10 dudes, I'm like, hey bud, like don't waste your time looking yours up. Here's yours. It's not as good as mine. I felt so good. And then I challenged him to a tattoo bet to see if I finished higher than him in the league. He could pick a tattoo for me. I'd pick a tattoo for him. And he said no. And then I changed my name to, he called him a coward as my team name. And I love just the trash talk that comes around with this too, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great time of year, man. We're officially in it. And I think with that, we'll pretty much wrap this, man. We'll put a bow on it. Anything else that you want to get off? I mean, do you have any thoughts on the Queen? Anything else that you saw in the world today that you just feel like you need to get off your chest?
Really good memes for that. I mean, damn, that lady was old.
Yeah.
She old AF.
Twitter was made for days like that.
It was.
For better or for worse. Yeah.
I'm good, man. I got nothing else.
Yeah, me either. But
it's a 36-hour-long podcast journey.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is like, it is. I don't know what the end run time is going to be on this. I think we're looking at like an hour, 30, hour 40, but we've essentially been podcasting for about 36 straight hours, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you so much, Ben, for stepping up, filling in for Dugan. Dugan, obviously, we'll see you back here soon. Again, just hit all our socials, right? We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, Jump Shots from the Goal Line podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, 5 stars. Run those, review them, do all the things that we ask you to do. Anything to help us out, we greatly appreciate it. Ben, thank you so much again for filling in and bringing the slate of picks. And then the weeks coming up, I'm sure we'll probably do a little bit more of a balance, and we'll probably go a little bit of college football and a little bit of NFL as we really dig our teeth into the NFL. And we'll look to bring some guests back on. So, and I know, Ben, you're going to keep riding with us, so we appreciate it, and we love having you, man. And with that, we'll sign off.
Bye-bye.